Good afternoon and welcome to our news for today. Israeli war jets continue bombarding Gaza Strip, killing 15 Palestinians so far and wounding more than 120 others, mostly women and children.
Palestinian medical sources announced today that 5 Palestinians were killed in a new Israeli air raid on Khan Yunis city in the south of Gaza Strip, thus raising the death toll to 15 martyrs so far. At least 120 others were wounded, including women and children. The Palestinian martyrs included 2 children, 1 pregnant woman and an old man. More than 25 children, 17 women and 11 elderly persons were wounded. Palestinian sources said that Israeli F-16 warjets conducted 80 raids on Gaza. Israeli war boats also shelled Palestinian coast at a Sudania area, hitting Palestinian houses. Shortly before 7 p.m. today, the Israeli occupation army bombarded 50 sites in the Strip and carried out more than 20 air raids. Meanwhile, the Israeli occupation authorities admitted that 4 settlers were killed and 2 others were seriously injured in shelling carried out by Palestinian resistance men on Kiryat Melachi settlement, according to the Israeli Yediot Ahronot newspaper. The Palestinian resistance continued shelling sites and settlements of the Israeli occupation with scores of missiles at the time when Israel is going on with its barbaric aggression on Gaza. Politically, the UN Security Council held an emergency meeting for its 15 permanent members and issued a statement about the fact that it held an emergency meeting. For his part, the Palestinian representative at the UN, Riyad Mansour, called on the UN Security Council to shoulder its responsibilities in finding ways of stopping the Israeli aggression on Gaza.
We wanted an immediate meeting of the Security Council, and that happened. A debate took place. I can agree with the President of the Security Council. Almost all those who spoke in the Security Council wanted this onslaught and aggression against our people to be stopped, and to be stopped immediately.
The U.S. envoy to the UN, Susan Rice, affirmed her country's support of Israel and its aggression on Gaza, pointing out that Israel has the right to defend itself against what she called the Palestinian rocket attacks, adding that nothing can justify the violence.
Syria has condemned the barbaric crimes perpetrated by the Israeli army against the Palestinian Arab people in the Gaza Strip today, which killed and wounded several Palestinians. In a statement, the government of the Syrian Arab Republic has called on the world community to pressure Israel to stop its atrocious aggression against the Palestinians in Gaza. The statement appealed to freedom lovers and honest peoples in the world to move earnestly in order to confront this aggression and deter Israel, that has always ignored international legitimacy and resolutions in flagrant violation of international law. The Syrian government added in its statement that the masses of the Arab nation are called upon today more than at any other time before to take a move and exercise pressure for supporting the Palestinian people in their steadfastness and struggle in defense of the nation's central cause, that of Palestine. At the conclusion of its statement, the Syrian government offered condolences on behalf of Syrian and the Syrian people to the relatives of the martyrs, affirming that Syria, despite the aggression and conspiracies it is exposed to, will continue forever to be loyal to its national commitments and historical principles towards the Palestinian people, to enable them to recover their usurped lands and build up their free, sovereign Palestinian state with Holy Jerusalem as its capital. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has called for a halt of military action and all sorts of violence in Gaza immediately, voicing his country's concern over the developments of the situation in the Strip. In a statement in the Saudi capital Riyadh today, Lavrov said, "It was unfortunate the International Quartet Committee had failed to convene and adopt a clear stand that would rapidly create the appropriate circumstances to resume direct negotiations between the Palestinians and the Israelis." Iran today condemned the Israeli aggression on the Gaza Strip, branding it as systematic terrorism. Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesman Ramin Mehmatprest has been quoted as expressing his country's strong denunciation of the Israeli crimes committed against the innocent Palestinian people, calling on the non-aligned countries to shoulder their responsibilities towards the Palestinians, particularly those who live in Gaza, through severing the relations with the Israeli entity. On its part, China expressed extreme concern over the Israeli aggression carried out on a wide scale against the Gaza Strip. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman Hong Li strongly denounced any action that would lead to losses among civilians. He called on concerned parties, particularly Israel, to observe self-control to avoid any escalation of the tense situation. Meanwhile, scores of Palestinians were wounded following attacks by Israeli troops in different villages and towns across the West Bank, in which independence rallies were held to mark the Palestinian Youth Day. Israeli troops deployed thousands of soldiers in an attempt to prevent Palestinians from taking part in these rallies. Palestinian news agencies said that Israeli occupation authorities blocked the roads and set up many barricades at the main entrances of Palestinian cities and towns. American President Obama said his country was not ready to recognize the so-called Syrian opposition coalition as a government in exile, welcoming what he called the unification of the Syrian opposition ranks. Obama talked about differences with his French counterpart, François Hollande, who had recognized the Doha coalition as the only representative of the Syrian people. This difference of stand between Washington and Paris had been earlier referred to by the American State Department. In an attempt to supply the armed terrorist group with weapons, the French Foreign Minister Laurent Fabius announced that his country will ask the European Union to lift the ban of sending weapons to Syria, and that, according to his claim, to enable countries to deliver weapons to the opposition fighters. An army unit today clashed with a terrorist group in At-Tadamun neighborhood in Damascus, killing many of them and confiscating their weapons. Several terrorists were also eliminated near Al-Maliki Street. Their weapons and ammunition were seized. A field hospital was found near Al-Nujum Cinema that contained quantities of medical equipment and medicines stolen from public and private hospitals. A unit of our armed forces clashed with the remnants of terrorist groups around the city of Harasta and its neighborhoods in Damascus countryside. These terrorist groups has been assaulting citizens and their properties and damaging state institutions. The army unit wiped out many of those who were known for their terrorist and criminal acts in the city. An official source said to news correspondent that a number of the most dangerous terrorists were killed, and many of them were identified, including Murshid Mahmoud Mdallal, the leader of what is called the Harasta Coordinate, and the terrorists Rakan al-Mawla, Bashar Dib al-Ajwa, and Mustafa Azzuddin from the so-called Fath al-Islam Brigade, in addition to terrorists Muhammad al-Masri, Muhammad Dib Hassoun, and Noor Sulaiman Durra. Our armed forces today eliminated several terrorists in Deir ez-Zor and its suburbs. A terrorist gathering was attacked in Al-Bukamal. Several gunmen were killed and others were injured. In Al-Ardi and Al-Jubayla neighborhoods in Deir ez-Zor, an army unit clashed with a terrorist group, inflicting on them heavy losses. Our army unit continued to pursue armed terrorist groups in Al-Layramoun area in Aleppo, clearing after machine building and the surrounding residential building of terrorists, killing large numbers of them. A unit of our armed forces has destroyed a warehouse of ammunition and weapons and a car equipped with a Doshka machine gun near Al-Aido agency in Al-Sheikh Lutfi in Al-Marja district in Aleppo, killing dozens of terrorists, including the leader of a terrorist group, Abdel Ghani Shaghil, the Sudanese Abu Shurahbil, and the Libyan Abu Huzaifa. 22 citizens who had been involved in recent events in Hama but committed no acts of killing have been released. A governorate source said their release came after they had undertaken not to carry arms again or perpetrate any acts of sabotage that encroaches on Syria's security in the future. With this, we end our news bulletin for today. Thank you for watching. For more news about Syria and the region and to view our bulletin again, you can always visit our website in English, syriaonline.sy. And now to the latest business and market news.